Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, certainly an unwanted, an unwanted presence of this story breaking just before Michigan season starts. Now, switching over to this Saturday's home opener against Western Michigan University, the big thing on everybody's mind, I think, is the three-headed quarterback battle for the starting job at Michigan. And we've been waiting to have somebody on here that can really talk Michigan football because we've heard, don't discount Nick Sheridan, but then there's also going to be Denard and Tate. And I just wanted to get your take on the situation and how true to form is this Nick Sheridan not starting the WMU game?
Well, that's been my hunch, and I just think mainly, and I'm not saying you start Nick Sheridan and leave him in there for the first half. I think I think that they feel comfortable with a guy who's played before 111,000 people before. He's got that. Nick has that. The other two don't. The freshmen don't. And the one thing Rich said today on the conference call is that Nick is the safe guy. His order was safe guy to put in there. And that said, I think you put him in there just to get everybody's feet wet and get going, get the offense running. And then I think you insert Tate and you insert Denard, and he did say again today that we'll probably see both of them on the field at once, and that obviously this is a unique situation, and maybe more unique, as Rich said today, because two of the three are freshmen, and I don't think any of us have seen three quarterbacks play in a game, more than just a couple snaps. So I don't think Nick will end up being the starter season long. I mean, I think this is Tate's job to go in there and take. But right now, Rich seems to be very comfortable with the concept of playing three quarterbacks for a couple games.
Switching over here to the defense a little bit, what overall should we expect from them this year, and what type of things you're going to see with the obviously the coordinator switch coming up on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, Greg Robinson is the third defensive coordinator at Michigan in 3 years, and that's another unique situation. Players seem to have really embraced him, though, and the one thing that you keep hearing is that he's added a dose of chemistry to the staff, and the players have noticed that, and I think that was missing last year when Scott Schaefer was at Michigan as a defensive coordinator. I think that I think every defense goes in wanting to be attacking and be aggressive. Those are certainly the catchwords you hear every year. The one thing I think it's going to be a really tough year for this defense if it doesn't stay healthy. I mean, there's just not a lot of numbers there. There's not a lot of experience, not a lot of depth. And I mean, you got Brandon Graham, and you got OBJ, you got some pretty good players out there, but it's who's behind them, and they want to keep a nice rotation and keep guys fresh. But I think it's going to be hard to go deep into this rotation, and the absolute key is to keep these guys healthy if possible.
And when you look at Western Michigan, what's your gut feeling for the weekend in terms of what might happen in this game overall?
Well, I think I've looked at this game as pivotal for Michigan in a lot of ways. If they get through this game, I can see them kind of not rolling to a 4-0 start, but that being a very strong potential. I think Notre Dame in the second week is going to be very tough because Notre Dame needs that Michigan win in the second week in a big way as well. But Western is tough. I mean, I think it's going to be a close game, and I think that Michigan's secondary is just going to be. We're going to see them obviously tested very early and throughout that game. And I don't, if they can hold that offense and Hiller, I mean, I think that they've got a really good chance to win this game. Michigan does, and I fully expect Michigan to win this game, but I don't think it's going to be by a large margin.
Yeah, well, definitely. Well, we are thankful for the wonderful prediction of the W. That's what we've been talking about for the past couple of weeks here on the show. But now, when you look at the defense, you want to talk about kind of, the lack of depth at skill positions in the secondary. What do you think, just if you had to specify one particular spot in the defense, whether it be, the safeties or the cornerbacks, what do you think is our biggest area of concern?
Well, both of those, definitely. I mean, safety, they've tried to move players around, try to shore things up. I like the movement of like a Stevie Brown to the hybrid positions. I like that. They've called them spinners and, what was the other word? But the hybrids, they've had that at Michigan. I mean, we've seen players sort of emerge and evolve into that kind of, splitting like a rush end and a linebacker kind of position. And I like that. And I think that's going to be a really good move, Stevie Brown. But I'd like to see how Mike Williams starts off this season. I think he's going to be an absolute key. And I'd like to really see how Troy Wolfolk's going to make his debut this weekend and how strong he'll be now playing a different position.
And my last question, do you think we're finally this year, or do you think we're a year away, going to see the spread offense as Rich Rodriguez wants it?
It's, I think it's going to be closer certainly than it was last year. I think that you've got three quarterbacks who get it, and including Nick. I mean, he doesn't have the ability speed-wise and the agility that the freshmen have, but he's looked pretty on point and on target, I thought, during practices, as all three have, and they've also definitely had they've had some slip-ups as well. But it's a great group of tailbacks. I think they're going to use all five in a lot of different ways, and I really think Carlos Brown is going to be the key. If he stays healthy, I think he's going to be maybe the biggest impact guy out there on the field. And the receivers, I still don't know. I mean, people keep asking about that. I'm not really sure. I mean, I think it's interesting that Calvin Grady is getting so much publicity and so much praise, and he's just moved over from the basketball team. So I think it's going to be much closer to what Rich wants, but it's certainly a couple years away from being a Pat White kind of driven offense.
So now when we look over the season, we have plenty of tough games on the schedule. And my last question for you, Angelique, is just where do you see us, as in the win column for the Wolverines at the end? Are we going bowling again at the end of this season, hopefully?
I think so. I mean, I keep waffling on this, and I've sort of settled on 6-6, and President say, "Oh yeah, you're really going out on a limb," but I think that's fair. And I've looked at the schedule a couple times and only come up with 5 wins. A couple times I look at it and saying, "Well, nope, 7." I just think the road schedule is really tough in the Big Ten. At Michigan State's going to be tough. At Iowa's going to be tough. At Illinois, I mean, the Iowa game's at 9, and Kinnick is tough place to play. One of the toughest places in the Big Ten. I think the game at Illinois at the end of October is going to be brutal. And the game I think that they pull out a win on the road is at Wisconsin. I don't think that team's very good this year, but Camp Randall's very, very difficult to play in. So that's one of those, it could go either way. So I'm settling on 6-6, even though it doesn't sound like I'm going much out on a limb. That means a bowl game. So
yeah, that's good. Well, Angelique, thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate it here on the Victors.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Anytime.
All right, sounds good. We'll talk to you later, Angelique.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That's Angelique Chengelis. She is the Detroit News beat writer. Very nice lady. Lovely lady, too.
Oh, she is awesome.
They call her the Angel of the Big House, too.
Oh, okay.
When she was on DFN. So she knows her stuff. And, I just, honestly, when it comes to Michigan football, she is the source. Like I was texting you,